My question's to the Crime Commissioner, Mr Barnes. And in terms of the where the concern is in terms of far-right extremism, you said that there's, I think in submissions that you've made to a federal inquiry, the Crime Commission, you've got a concern about a rising concern in relation to far-right extremism in New South Wales. Is that right, Mr Barnes?
As you know, that federal inquiry is looking at the impact of COVID on law enforcement, and so our submission addressed whether or not there had been any increased threat, amongst other things, on those groups. Yes.
Yeah, and it would be fair to say that your submission said that there were some far right-wing groups who were creating conspiracy theories and political theories around COVID-19 and seeking to use that as an opportunity to increase their reach in New South Wales. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, they were applying their analysis of government action in some cases. This is further examples of our freedoms being trammelled by government. They're also talking about groups they target, foreign people from foreign communities, introducing the infection into what is otherwise a pure Australian community, and they were talking about using COVID to target those groups by introducing it to mosques and synagogues.
Yeah, all deeply offensive and appalling posts, but which had taken the opportunity, if I could call it that way, of COVID to try and press their ideological wagons. Is that right?
I think that's a fair assessment, yes.
Yeah. Have you got an assessment separate to COVID-19 of whether or not neo-Nazi and sort of proto-fascist groups are on the rise or not in New South Wales?
I know that groups who might pose a terrorist threat are constantly being monitored, and we contribute to that monitoring through the JCTT, the Joint Counter-Terrorism Task Force that involves New South Wales Police, ASIO and the AFP. And that monitoring has been ongoing for a long time. To say to what extent that's been increasing, I'd have trouble giving you a detailed answer.
All right. There have been a series of attacks against the Sikh community in Western Sydney, an attack on the Sikh temple at Glenwood, 2 attacks on young Sikh men in Harris Park, and I'm aware of yet another attack. Have those attacks upon the Sikh community been brought to your attention or the Crime Commission's attention?
I'm not aware if the JCTT has looked at those or not. I can take that on notice.
Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt you. Could I have 5 minutes to have a read of this document?
Oh, has it just arrived?
Yeah.
Yes, well, do you know what I might do is I might just finish the line of questioning with Commissioner Barnes and then we'll take a short break. We might have a 10-minute recess if members are okay with that.
I can't argue with that, but unless he's going to be asked a question now, can he get a head start?
There is a question that comes back to Commissioner Fuller on this, that's all. Sorry, Commissioner Fuller.
Right.
And, have you had have any concerns been raised with you about far-right extremism coming from certain political elements in the Indian diaspora in New South Wales? Mr Barnes?
Not that I can immediately recall, but I can check that for you.
Commissioner Fuller, there have been a number of complaints made to police from the Sikh community. Most recently, in the last few weeks, an attack on a Sunday night in Harris Park on 4 young Sikh men. It appeared to be, on the face of it, motivated by reason of their identity and potentially by reason of political disputes, especially regarding the farmers' law in India. Can you shed any light on what the extent of the police investigations are and what the police response is?
So there's a 2-tiered response to this. There is the criminal investigation that's happening, and there have been other matters made to police, and they are continuing at the moment. It has been challenging getting statements of some of the victims. I'm not talking about the most recent one. We also have Assistant Commissioner Peter Thurtell, who is our multicultural spokesperson. He's working with the communities and the community leaders, trying to ensure that we keep peace in Australia, being mindful that these issues are happening a long way away.
Have you undertaken, or have New South Wales Police undertaken any investigations about what, if any, political motivation or intent may have been underlining these attacks against the Sikh community?
Our intelligence command is doing environmental scanning across open source, looking for information that may assist us. I mean, at the end of the day, the community leaders need to work with us to ensure that we don't see violence on our streets. So that is happening. Now, is the Joint Counter-Terrorism Team has an open investigation in relation to this matter? The answer is no. But obviously, if it was an escalation and we thought they need to be involved, then of course they would. But we would be sharing intelligence with them.
Is your investigation about, again, in relation to those spate of attacks, particularly against the Sikh community, does it involve consideration about whether they have political motivations, particularly coming from the far-right political movement, if I could call it that way,
I guess
from India?
that joint tension, we're looking at it collectively, political motivation, local issues, what's happening overseas, that is all captured in the overall intelligence picture.
Are you willing to sit down with the Sikh community leaders and hear their concerns firsthand?
Assistant Commissioner Peter Thurtell was tasked by me to do that, but of course, if a community group wanted to meet with me, well, then I meet with them all the time. So if you're saying to me they want to meet with me, they haven't asked personally, then I'm happy to meet with them, yes.
All right.